This fall, experts predicted a slight famine that would cover the whole world. Many countries are already fearfully restricting the export of various products, and indeed, because many people encounter such problems for the first time. Therefore, the events that took place a century ago will be relevant for new conclusions.
Hunger is the worst thing that happened to the Kazakh people in 1921 and 1922. The Kazakhs suffered a great famine that took the lives of the 1.5 to 2 million people. At that time, it was the half of the Kazakh population.
At first, during the famine, people took all the edible leftovers and crumbs that they could find. People ate cats and dogs, cold shells and fried, tasted worms and clay. They washed everything down with birch juice. But over time, out of desperation, murder for the purpose of stealing provisions began. Later it flowed into mass cannibalism. While families died out, people drank their own blood to survive, and died to give it to others. Because of this, various diseases, such as typhus and diarrhea, were common.
In autumn, it turned out the stocks of harvested grain, together with the stocks of the past year, would only be enough for a major norm for each person. In 1922, the Kazakh lands were subjected to severe drought, during which the intercrops in the Ural, Orenburg, Aktobe, Kustany regions dead. More than 2.3 million people are starving on Kazakh soil. The population of Kazakh have decreased by 1 million people. In 1920, according to the census, there were 2,457,397 starving people, and in 1821 it reached 63.4% of the total population.
The crop failure of those times was caused not only by drought, heat and natural disasters, the backwardness of the agricultural sector, the low level of knowledge, the obsolescence of replaceable sowing facilities. But the main catalyst of the disaster was the tax policy and war.
The numbers of livestock in the Kazakh territory decreased by 1.8 million. Understanding all this unfavorable condition for the people of Kazakhstan, the Soviet government continued to withdraw all food. The Soviet authorities forcibly took away from the inhabitants more bread, meat, and raw materials. In 1920, 1.5 million puts of grain were confiscated from the population, due to which the grain deficit amounted to 2.5 million puts.
The tax policy has provoked already radical strata of society. The civil war was accompanied by a lack of order and stability among the military detachments, which had a bad effect on the possibility of providing assistance to Central Asia. The seizure of the Trans-Siberian Railway by the Czechoslovak Corps devised separatist detachments that broke up. The battles of the rest with Kolchak, Denikin and Wrangel also prevented this.
The civil war brought devastation. Most of the enterprises on the territory of Kazakhstan didn't work. The factory at the Sapais plant was burned down, and the mines of Reader Jeskazgan were flooded. The railways were destroyed and left without fuel. The agriculture of the lands was reduced by 2 million acres. The grain harvest was reduced by 3 times. In March 1922, the chairman of the Kazakh Executive Committee, Seyit Kalybaev, described the situation to Stalin in this way. In some villages, hundreds of people die of hunger every day. We are not talking about eating cats, dogs, rotting grasses, and everything else. We are talking about cannibalism. The nomadic population of the country is practical concern. Many families are dying in villages. Moscow did not give anything, and Turkestan offered only promises.
From the data found, it is possible to find a parallel with today. That's why we interviewed about 35 people about this. Respondents were mostly aware of the terrible tragedy of the early 20th century. Based on this information, a significant part of the current generation has already faced the problem of food shortage. And with the last questions, we wanted to know more about their experience. Most are threatened by the external political situation and still have concerns. But despite the prediction of experts and many similarities with today, the famine of the 20th century will not happen again. The official representative of the Grain Union said, "As for the price increase, we have almost reached the same 40%. If in autumn of 2021 wheat was 120,000 tenge per ton, now it's 160,000, and there is unlikely to be more, at least in Kazakhstan and neighboring countries." Unlike the past, we now have an independent country that will live for its own good. The peak of price growth means that people will eat products of the first importance, and external unrest will only shake the situation a little.